Okay, so this is all about the ID selector. So you can also have a class and an ID in the same HTML element. Like for example, we have created a div element with the class of class 3. Let's put something there. Alright, so you can also add an ID to these elements. A ID. So when styling these div elements, we can decide to use class selector or the ID selector. So I can use references using class 3, change the color to pink, and the font size to 30 pixels. Let me color it deeper so it sees properly. Right. So I can style these div elements using the class selector, or I can also style using the ID selector. So if I clear off this class 3 hash symbol, it applies, sorry, ID 2. It applies the same styling. It applies the styling to the same elements. Yes, okay. So we can use either the class selector or the ID selector for an element that has both the class and ID in the tag. Right. So it is also possible to use both the class selector and the ID selector at the same time, but the compiler, as the Visual Studio Code, would use the ID selector over the class selector. So if I were to reference class 3 again, and this time I use color of red, the color will remain purple. Even if I were to put this class 3 above the ID 2 in the style tag, it will still remain purple. But if I were to apply another style, if I were to apply text decoration underline, it would apply the underline style, but it will first go through the styling for the ID selector, then apply these styles first, and if there are any contradictions in the class selector of the same element, it would skip those contradictions and apply the new styling, which is this text decoration underline. But it's not advised to use both the class and the ID selectors when styling an element. So I'll just remove this. So the last selector we're looking at is the general selector. Can be applied to all elements in the document. It applies the specified styles to the content of all the elements, and this is represented by an asterisk sign. So using a general selector, first starts with the asterisk sign, then your curly brackets, and any style you apply, say text decoration underline. So a general selector is applied to every element. It's a styling of a general selector is applied to every element in your HTML document. So I didn't reference any element specifically, but using the asterisk symbol, I was able to apply the text style, text decoration underline to every text in the HTML file. So that's how the general selector works. Alright, so while using the general selector, you can also change the color of other text of all text on the web page. But if a text if a text contains a styling of a class selector or an ID selector, the styling of that ID or class selector is taken over the general selector. Like now, looking at this H1 and P paragraph tag, you can see that the style applied from the general styling, which is this color aqua, has been applied to the H1 and the paragraph tag. But for other tags and elements that contain classes and IDs, the styling, the color is not applied because it's the Visual Studio Code is taking precedence of the ID selectors and class selectors over the general selector. For example, if I were to remove this class from this element, then the color and the styling will change to fit what is put in the code brackets, in the code block of the general selector. Right. One last thing for today's class is comments. So comments are used to explain or debug your code. For example, if I want to remove these two texts, or let me just not remove this welcome to summer camp text without, I don't want to delete it, I just want to keep it aside. Maybe I'll come back later and use it later. So what I would do is I would highlight the text, and then on my keyboard I would press Control and /. So that combination of keys comments out that code block, and it is not applied on the web page. So, and right, comments. To make a comment, you start with your left angular brackets, the exclamation sign, 2 dashes, and the Visual Studio Code will complete it for you. But to close it, you need 2 more dashes and the right angular brackets. So any code or any text, any elements implemented inside these brackets is not applied on the web page. For example, this courtesy of Childish Foundation now, if I want to remove it, I can do it manually by using the brackets, exclamation mark, dashes, and then closing it on the other side. Don't forget to close your comments. If not, you risk commenting out your whole code. Alright, so I've closed the comment now, and it is not applied on the web page. Even the styling, it is not there at all. But on comments, this is called singular line comments. But now for multi-line comments, what you do is, for multi-line comments, you highlight the code blocks you want to comment out. It might be 2, there might be 3. Let me highlight all these 3, and then you press Control and the /, and automatically you have commented out that code block from your web page. So that's one of the functions of comments, used for debugging, used for removing or for removing code blocks that you do not need on your web page for now while you are working on the others. Another function of comments is to explain your code. One of the best practices for web development is using comments to explain your code. So if another developer is going through your code, maybe using it as a reference material to study, or is part of your development process, because working as a web developer, you don't always work alone, you always work in teams. So if he or she is part of your team and is reviewing your code, the comments help he or the developer understand your code better. Like, let's explain this code block. Welcome to summer camp. So I can say this is site. I already done an example here, and then this other side, body section, which contains text for web page. So any developer coming to read my code would immediately understand once he sees these comments that, okay, this section is the heading, is the header section, while this section is the body section. So that's how we use comments to explain our code. You can write as much as you want in here. You can make it into paragraphs as long as you want, and it will not be executed on your website. So that's the function of comments. In our next class, we will look at HTML5 multimedia. So you can just look at this material, play around with the class selectors, the ID selectors, or the comments itself, and get to know them a little better. Thanks for watching.